Now to our coverage of Democracy 2010. A new poll shows Rick Scott has a 3-point lead over Alex Sink in the race for governor. The Rasmussen Reports poll, taken 4 days ago, has Scott at 50% and Sink at 47%. That is within the margin of error. Sink held a slight lead, 41.1 to 38.5% over Scott in an ABC Action News Zogby poll conducted about a week earlier. Now, with the governor's race this close, Alex Sink is throwing a long pass. In fact, it's 2 minutes long, designed to give voters second thoughts about her Republican opponent, Rick Scott. Democratic candidate Alex Sink previewed her 2-minute attack ad that begins airing on local stations this week. Why 2 minutes?
It takes more than a 30-second ad to detail my opponent's long record of unethical business practices and even fraud investigations and criminal investigations.
Today, we open the fraud file of Rick Scott.
The ad details the well-documented history of Rick Scott's leadership at HCA Columbia, a healthcare company that paid a record $1.7 billion fine for Medicare fraud.
It's tough, but it's true.
Sink has also lined up the support of Florida's Police Benevolent Association, who say they don't trust Rick Scott and are offended by his reported decision to invoke the Fifth Amendment in a deposition concerning his latest business venture.
If I take the Fifth, I'm working for Wackenhut. I'm not working as a police officer. They will fire you.
But in Orlando today, Rick Scott lined up his own blue line of support with local sheriffs Jim Coates of Pinellas County and Bob White of Pasco.
When we turn this state around, one of the reasons we're going to be able to do it is because we've invested in law enforcement, and we make sure we have the right people in law enforcement, and we continue to fund law enforcement.
Sink and Scott have just 3 weeks to break a virtual tie in the race, but Sink's negative 2-minute ad seems to contradict her earlier pledge to run a positive campaign. University of Tampa political science professor Scott Payne says attack ads may be unavoidable at this point.
For both Scott and Sink, failing to run some very critical ads against their opponent, likely to mean that they're going to be perceived as the weaker candidate.
This ad is paid for by the state Democratic Party. It begins airing on local stations Wednesday evening. To find the very latest political news, including information on the candidates, go to our website, abcactionnews.com/politics.